Ladies and gentlemen, this is internet personality Vangelus, and in the name of the eternal vow of bravery, I'm here to take a look at the original Takara Deluxe GaoGaiGar, as released by Sonicong in Korea. It's borderline identical to the Japanese Takara release, as far as I'm aware, and it's been over 6.5 years since that thing happened to us in 2009. The subtitles are legally over their PTSD from the experience, so I am legally able to review this classic Yusha mother. All tales of bravery begin with a lion, and Galleon is the white robot king of the cosmic jungle that begins the GaoGaiGar experience. This is a Takara release from 1997, on the tail end of their chunky journey through Yusha legends. Even in the 21st century, I find there's a struggle to properly represent the feline form of a lion on a transforming robot toy, so I gotta give props to DX Galleon for getting so much right. For sure, he kinda has no neck, and his rear legs are overly long, but the massive thighs do their best to hide underneath the black rocket propulsion hip skirts. The sculpt is pretty good, avoiding many fully flat surfaces by adding at least some kind of panel lining at fairly regular intervals. The paintwork is pretty low-key, though, mostly covering the quote-unquote main area, which is quickly overshadowed by Galleon's gold-chromed head. The vac metal is eye-catching, but not eye-catching enough to distract from the biggest missing paint apps on Galleon's bare white plastic claws. At least his green eyes also got some paint. The forward legs can ratchet forward and backwards. They can softly ratchet outwards a little bit as well. There is an elbow joint here. It's kind of sticky, because mine's old, but it's got a few positions, like 1, 2, 3, and then it's straight. That's okay. Lets you do a little bit of variance here. The paws can kind of pose, but they only really flip up to reveal some robot fists. They don't fold down any farther. So it's touch limited what you can get out of those, which means it's a touch limited what kind of lion poses you can get out of this guy. Also the biceps swivel. They are similarly like very softly detented, so you can get a lot of in-between points in there if you wanted to look all like, I don't know what's going on, or like he's getting ready to pounce. The mouth can open and close. And then the head can look up, but also that means it separates from the body, so it's not really a very good joint. Same thing with the swivel joint here. There is a swivel here, but the axis of movement is kind of useless for Galleon himself. His tail can waggle, though, and this whole, like, butt flap pack can move up and down. The rear legs can go forwards and backwards, and there is, again, a knee that it folds up to be about this tight, and it can go straight as well in 2 clicks. And it's soft enough you can stop it in between clicks if you want. Although, I find it generally looks best like this. And then there is a thigh swivel here, although this doesn't help out a ton because there's no ankle tilt, so it looks a bit awkward. And the foot on the rear legs can click forward and backwards a bit. Much like the front leg, like this one has a bigger range of motion, but much like the front leg, there's not much to get out of a lot of its different positions. You're kind of stuck with mostly posing the front of Galleon and then leaving the back, you know, either straight or just out of focus. I should mention there's also a waist joint here, which can be helpful at times for slashing kind of poses. But yeah, Galleon is a not super posable, but, you know, very basically posable big ratchety robot lion from the mid-90s. Late 90s, actually. 97, that's late, right? What would you call late? What would you call mid? What would you call late? Let me know. I got other stuff to do. Every Galleon's got his Gao machines, and I always like to start off with the drill tank. This is Drill Gao, a drill tank, which has got lovely golden gimlets and, like, absolutely no other paint to speak of. It's a simple and classic design, basically a box on treads that kind of does a good job of not looking like disembodied feet. Also, the treads have got little rollin' wheels. Liner Gao also has little rollin' wheels, and that's literally all there is to its play value. Luckily, this seam-coated stick of a Shinkansen has got a lot of paint and sticker stuff to bring its topside stripes and windows to life. Stealth Gao is the largest of the Gao machines and looks pretty great from the top, thanks to its strong shape and copious stickerings. The red paint apps on the turbines are also quite strong considering the fact that they're applied onto black plastic. However, things like the cockpit windows are actually separate red plastic pieces, which is a pretty smart solution for a 1997 piece. Unfortunately, the realities of the physics of GaoGaiGar's combination makes the underside of Stealth Gao a legit mess of indefensible combiner bits, so don't go for an upskirt viewing angle, you sickos. One of the best parts of this set is how screen accurate it is for a late 90s super robot toy that gets its gatai on. So let's engage Fusion! and enjoy a simple transformation that skimps on no dramatic details. Galleon's head flips and twists, the claws punch and kick themselves into robot hands and feet, and the often off-screen waist swivel only adds to the experience. Behold! GaoGaiGar! Just as Galleon made a valiant attempt that bore a burden of aesthetic sacrifices, so too does GaoGaiGar. He's clearly a white robot biped born from a lion, but his head is tiny in order to fit the GaoGaiGar helmet over top. His legs are also really thick and large, since the thighs are shared with a larger combination, but taking the era into account, this is still a charming and solid robot toy, especially for the very first try. Paintwork is still minimal, mostly focusing on GaoGaiGar's excellent 90s head sculpt, and entirely ignoring the gray bits I'd like to have seen on his bare white robot fists. If you like, you can fold the lion feet back out over top of them to replicate the GaoGaiGar claw attack that was very seldom seen on screen. GaoGaiGar can wear a pair of drill gloves if you split DrillGao in half, open a pair of panels, and line up some pegs with the hinged divots on the Galleon claw wrists. Stealth Gao can also attach hang glider style, provided you keep GaoGaiGar's arms pointed straight forward at the shoulders in order to clip them in. You can stack both the Drill Gao and Stealth Gao upgrades to create the adorable SD GaoGaiGar formation, though those drills are permanently going to be pointing at the floor or straight ahead. A point I made about 7 years ago was that Hyoryu and Enryu were pretty posable toys for their era. GaoGaiGar here is around about the same size as them, maybe a bit taller, and he's also pretty posable for the era. He's got a simple swivel head, and then he's got ratcheted shoulder motion in this direction, 4 clicks for 90 degrees, and it's, you can go everywhere. Outwardly, starting from straight down, 4 clicks for 90 degrees. This is a bit of a soft ratchet, and if you try real hard, you can get it to stop in between clicks, but it's just enough effort that I find it doesn't really do much to pay off when every click is quite useful to me. The elbow, however, does need that. It's like 2 clicks for 90 degrees. So, this ratchet, you can almost see how big the spaces are in between each detent. That means you can very easily, this way, stop it anywhere along its path if you just apply some careful pressure and have a little bit of patience. So, the arms are pretty cool. There's no wrist rotation, unfortunately, but there is a waist joint, and it's for the transformation, but quite honestly, it's just a badass waist joint. That's not a joint. That's just me grabbing the wrong part and yanking too hard. Although, if you are transforming this guy, this is a great way to get his head to come out if you're having troubles. Or if it, sucks back down in there, and you're like, what do I do? Do that. His hips, you can see the disc here. It's a very ratchety hip rotation. 8 clicks for 90 degrees. That's glorious. And then outwards, you basically get 2 clicks. It's like a click and a half almost. And it looks real silly when you do this. But it is an option. There are knees for this mode. Right above the knees, there's a thigh swivel, which is lightly detented. Than the knees are 2 clicks. They're almost the same looking kind of system as the elbows, so you can, again, with a little bit of finesse, get it to stop in between ratchets, but since all his weight's going down on here, if you put him down, it'll very likely just get pushed into one of its 2 major positions. You can also break his knee if you really want to, but that's rude. And then his ankles have got a little bit of tilting. The front and back part of the foot can, do this sort of thing separately, but this part can be of use, to be honest. But the front part, not so much, because it can't go up, it can only go down. But you can click this forward once, or back once from its center position, which is right here. And that ankle joint is hard to use, but it is a lot more useful than one might think. And with the waist joint and the neck joint, this dude, for a toy as old as he is, and not being the main attraction even of the whole set, is kind of the main posing attraction of the whole set. Because if you position his foot joints just right, you can get him to hold pose, in something that isn't super stock still. If you move this out and you don't mind the look of that with his groin kind of hanging down between his thunderous thighs, you can get some stuff happening here. And the thigh swivel is immensely helpful too in getting just like a solid standing base set up. A little bit of tweaking. So GaoGaiGar is a pretty posable 1997 Takara robot, and is very fun to mess around with. But that's not all you want to do with this guy. We got all those Gao machines. Something might happen. I mentioned this before, but a show-accurate combination remains one of the greatest achievements of Takara's DX GaoGaiGar, and so, to reveal that key to victory, Final Fusion is approved! And yes, this Final Fusion is highly show-accurate. Like, the entire engineering of this combination is designed to solidly let you, the starry-eyed child of 1997, smash the Gao machines together in roughly the same ways that they do on screen. And let me tell you, nearly 20 years later, and over 10 years since I've had the toy, it remains a magical and satisfying experience that is butt-loaded with courageous nostalgia. Even the fists do that thing that GaoGaiGar's fists do when they slide on. There's no spinning, but who cares? The motion, the gesture is still there. This, my friends, is GaoGaiGar! Finally, the DX hero we have been waiting for has been born. He is the DX King of Braves, DX GaoGaiGar! For sure, this isn't absolutely on model to what we saw on screen, but 1997's GaoGaiGar has got some awesome toy robot proportions going on. He's like a slightly more vanilla take on the beefier show model, looking generally slimmer and maybe a little younger. His helmet is kinda large, mostly due to the 20th century children's toy physics of getting it to actually fit down on top of Gaigar's head, but man, the identity is strong in this toy, and the retro style is chunky, durable, and playable in a most endearing fashion. The colors are a combination of everything seen before, though the chromed galleon head now has flared chrome mane accoutrements, and I really wish these mane parts had actually clipped on somehow, as there's always a bit of a gap on either side. GaoGaiGar's head is lovely, painted in all its major quadrants and suffering only in the bright unpainted yellow plastic of the forehead crest. I would be satisfied with all of this alone, but DX GaoGaiGar has also included one accessory, in the form of the Dividing Driver! It's got an awesome sculpt, and absolutely no paint, along with an unpainted safety yellow driver tip. All of that, along with its lack of offensive capability outside of some very clever uses in a few episodes of the show, makes it a piece that's super easy to leave in a drawer while you fusion the main man of 3G in and out of his various modes. DX GaoGaiGar has no neck joint when he's GaoGaiGar because this thing came down over that, and there's nothing to disengage it from the red stick or allow for any kind of head swivel. Unfortunate. However, the liner Gao has got all these little cuts in it and stuff to allow for things like, aside from going up, going forward as a shoulder joint. And that's pretty cool. I remember back when I first got this, that I was like kind of unclear as to whether or not this toy actually had forward motion on here, and I thought it was a real pleasant surprise if he did. It's kind of ratchety, and I believe, yeah, this one is a lot less kind to move than this one. As for other axes of shoulder motion, you can go outwards like this, thanks to the transformation. There's also a dedicated ratchety elbow, and that's pretty cool. There's also a waist joint that still works even with all this stuff attached, and for, you know, a 1997 piece, I think this is a super cool bit of posability. He's got GaiGar's hip joints, which means forward motion, a little bit of backwards, a little bit outwards motion if you don't mind his skirt blowing up like that. There is no knee joint. The knee that GaoGaiGar had is now inside the boot. There is a swivel right above the boot, which helps a lot getting this guy to look a little bit lively, especially since when you're messing around with his legs, you can often just get him, like, between ratchets, just pull his legs apart like this, twist these in a bit, and he just looks a bit more organic. But there's nothing down here. There's just that swivel. The toes, like, you could move the toe a bit from the transformation joint, I suppose, but it doesn't really help out all that much. End of the day, this dude is not superposable. He's decent from the waist up, but not superposable. Can you do attacks? All, like, for Protect Shade, you know, you can point his fist forward. He can't look at it, but I guess it's happening. Broken Magnum, he can do everything for that, sort of, because you could pull this up, you know, so he's like going, Broken Magnum! And, if you yank the arm off of its mount here, and then, I don't know, push the fist back out. You know, you could take this and you could throw it at somebody, or, you know, back there. But that's about it. You can't really easily have him knee somebody in the face since he has no knee joints. If you're gonna go for something like that, I guess you'd need to just have him whack it in there. Can you get him into a flight pose? Sort of. It does help that he has these outward joints, but he's gonna always be looking down. You can't even really use this transformation joint to have him look up, because then you've just disengaged his helmet and things have gotten weird. So, the final test, and probably the most disappointing part of this toy, and I would have been disappointed as a kid, is he used a certain special attack at the end of a whole lot of episodes early on. Hell in heaven. His hands can't come together for it. It just ain't happening. Let's see, like, if you move the lion mane pieces, like, all the way out of the way, I guess you can kind of do it. It ain't happening, really, and his legs are not going to be doing anything helpful, aside from maybe going like that. So, this dude's a pretty fun, just chunky, posable super robot, but he, you know, he's not built to replicate sequences from the anime beyond Final Fusion. Nonetheless, real solid, chunky, he can assume, like, this real decent, not too, like, brickish robot pose. I like him. I spent my latter teenage years yearning for this toy, and he was the prize of my BotCon 2003 adventure. I passed up on a $99 Brave Maximus for this piece. Granted, I got the Sonicon gift set version that also included Goldie Marg, but still! DX GaoGaiGar represents the end of an era. He was the last Takara-made Yusha protagonist, and taking my nostalgia goggles and 3G fanboyism into account as much as I can, this is one of the best super robot toys of the 20th century. He's a playset's worth of individual components, with lower level play patterns throughout. And when you combine them all together, the way that you can just mimic the gestures of the show's legendary stock footage to do so is simply amazing for the era. This isn't just a long box that stands up and has a smaller robot jump into the chest. This is a four-way combination that integrates things in incredibly unique ways. DX GaoGaiGar has got some funky proportions, but stands the test of time incredibly well as far as I'm concerned. This is a must-have piece for any Brave fan, even if you've already delved into the higher end of the GaoGaiGar toy world. For many years, despite many expensive licensed pieces, the DX GaoGaiGar of 1997 remained rather untouched as a playable piece, representing this character. It wasn't until the Super Robot Chogokin that I felt a superposable GaoGaiGar felt anything but awkward, and it wasn't until the Soul of Chogokin that I felt a transforming GaoGaiGar felt anything but frustratingly fragile. This is one of the toys, ladies and gentlemen. Seek it and believe in it. Anyway, this has been internet personality Vangelus, and I hope this video shared some insight into the adoration I hold for a Japanese children's toy from 1997. A toy I've waited far too long to review in any way, shape, or form. And as I salute this aged playtime warrior of a century past, I say this: until we meet again someday in the sea of stars. This will be the key to victory.